Want to feel less overwhelmed by everything you have to do right now? All right, repeat after me. I don't have to do everything all at once because small, consistent steps lead to big, consistent growth. And I can do that.
Hi guys, I'm here with Sabina Hitchen. She is a PR expert and a founder of Press for Success School. Hi Sabina.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Thank you so much for doing this interview, because I think it will be super helpful for our viewers to learn a little bit about PR and, if you could share some of your skills. So tell me about your background and how did you first get into PR? How did you become?
Yeah, so it's funny. I love sharing my background because I think it's important for people to know where you begin isn't always where you end up, and that's okay. So if we're feeling we're stuck somewhere and we're like, why am I here? No, there's always another act. Or if you're not even sure where you're going, that's okay as well. And when I left school, I thought I'd be an attorney. I studied political science and history. And then I thought, I'm not ready to go to law school yet. So what I'll do is I'll defer it a year and I'll go teach high school somewhere and teach history. That sounded fun. I was like delaying a job I now realize I didn't want. So I was like, I'll just go be a teacher. And then I fell in love with education. I did that for years and then wrote education curriculum. So really got into teaching accidentally, and which shows you sort of like when you're called to something, sometimes it's accidental, but you do it. And then I just knew I wanted to get out of the Midwest and do something different. So I moved to New York City very much on a whim. And a friend of mine was like, they're looking for a PR assistant at Escada. And I know you've never done it, but you could probably pretend you have. And I was literally Googling like, what is PR and what is Escada, which is like so embarrassing now. But I was like so Midwestern country girl. And I was like,
the fashion brand we're talking about, right?
Right. Yeah. The fashion brand. And I was like, what is that? Oh, I'm embarrassed now. And I was like, so green, you guys. But I went to this interview and I BS'd my way through the interview. And I now know they were like, oh my God, she knew nothing about PR, but she was like so excited trying to sell herself that we're like, that's sort of what you need to do. So I got the job. I ended up learning PR there. And I was like, this is the best thing ever for a business. And then I went to an agency and I saw how it works for other kinds of stories, celebrity PR. We did Susan Lucci and a lot of like these soap opera celebrities. And I did products. And then because I was the youngest, they kept giving me the small business accounts that nobody wanted back then. They were not like, entrepreneurship wasn't sexy. So they gave it to me and I was like, oh my God, this is like the magic. These are the brands that are the most exciting to me. Mm-hmm. And that's where like my love affair with small businesses and publicity began. And that's where I fell in love with PR. Like that's where the story begins for me in PR.
So what is Press for Success School?
So Press for Success, which is at pressforsuccess.com, is a PR school for small businesses and like a membership community. So you can do it month to month, or you can do it for a whole year on like a membership. And we have streaming classes, we have live classes, there's new ones every month. We have access to interviews with the press and how to pitch them. Every day we have new PR opportunities that drop, which are not like the freebies you can sign up for online. They're real, like today, the Today Show reached out to our members. So they're huge opportunities. And we make it super accessible for $39 a month. So I wanted to like give them everything they need to learn how to do PR and then actively keep it going. And then all kinds of super sexy insider stuff like access to the press. And so we built it, and it's like my dream virtual school.
What are some of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to PR?
I think the biggest mistakes are we don't realize that the real work is before even pressing send. Like we're like, oh my God, PR means I need to get the address, the email address of like a reporter at the Today Show, because that's all everyone wants. And I need to send them an email about my business and that's going to change my life. But really the work in PR is the beginning that happens before that is like figuring out where your story belongs locally, like, online, different blogs, and then building relationships with the people who write those stories. And that doesn't mean it's like a year-long quest. It's like spend a few weeks getting to know them, look at their content, then write them and say, oh my gosh, I loved the story you did on this, or these tips you shared on this were great. Like letting them know who you are, social media connection with them. So then when you end up in their inbox, they're not like, who's this person? Instead, they're like, oh my gosh, I see her all the time on social. She connects with me on Instagram. So skipping that step is huge because everyone wants speed. Like this has to happen immediately. But if you did that work with the relationship, they're exponentially more likely to reach out to you. And then the other thing is just like slowing your roll for a second and saying like, what is the story I have to share? Are they expert tips? Is it the founder story about my business? Like, what am I sharing? And then where does that belong? You have to do those before you press send on an email. Otherwise, you're going to be like a one-hit wonder, or you're going to send one email out and be like, what happened? Was that it? And so you really have to do the before stuff because then the rest is so much easier.
So let's talk a little bit about celebrities and PR, because some of them are really good at it. Some of them kind of manage to get through like crisis PR if something really bad happens. Others manage to just stay in the news nonstop. Could be sometimes exhausting.
Yeah.
Viewers, but they still manage and they have their following. And then lastly, I wanted to ask you about Meghan and Harry interview. What are your thoughts on their interview? Was it a good PR?
If you want to answer that first, like I'll say, celebrities, first of all, we have to remember celebrities are master of PR. If we know about them, it's because of their publicity. And we have to remember that, like, we watch The Late Show with Jimmy Fallon or James Corden or Jimmy Kimmel, like every Jimmy. We watch those shows. We don't realize that's just publicity. Every interview is a celebrity promoting themselves. So publicity surrounds us. And the celebrities the most of are often the best at it. The Kardashians are a prime example. They're always putting themselves in the press. There's always a story. They're always trying to make themselves relevant. So the ones we know the most are masters of PR most often. And so then to speak to like the Meghan and Harry interview, you can say, is it good or bad, depending on what you think one's goal is, because what they are very good at, and you should know, just so we're all clear, like they have large PR teams. They aren't like just accidentally popping up in your magazines. Like they pay people to be in the news. I know who their PR team are. They're an amazing team led by an amazing guy who went to my college. These are like paid publicists whose job it is to leak stories about them all the time. So don't pretend that this is like some kind of quest for privacy. I want to be very clear. These people want publicity. And I think that's cool, but I want to make sure we all know what that's like. So is it good or bad? I feel like the challenge is, what do you want? If you want to always be talked about, then Harry and Meghan are doing that right, because the Oprah interview is still being dripped out by CBS. Gayle talks about it like all the time on the CBS morning show. Like we're all still talking about it, whether we hated it or loved it, like whatever we thought about it. So I think in that sense, it's great. But I think also that interview, again, like polarized people. Some people were really angry with some of the things that were said. And some people, especially in the UK, I'd say. And then, I mean, the United States has a big royal like fairy tale following. So a lot of us want to follow that story. But I do feel like it was in some ways very divisive, the conversations that were had. And then the question afterwards of like what everyone was thinking. So I think it's a tough one. But if you want to be in the news all the time, that's relevance, right? Keep showing up and talking about yourself. People are still talking about them, and they can leverage that like all of us can into other opportunities.
So when it comes to like crisis PR, something really bad happens. And then you do see, people wait a little bit, a couple of years, and then they emerge again. Right. Any thoughts on that?
Well, that's also really interesting. I was thinking the other day, like Britney Spears, who again is like, there's a whole other, the Free Britney movement. But outside of that, remember all these people, Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, have all had these really big, Billy Bush, who's back on TV again now. So one thing they do show us is you can mess up royally and the world loves a redemption tale. We love to like build you up. We love to watch you fall, and then we want to like let you rise from the ashes after you paid, been punished enough. So I feel like that is this cycle we see celebrities go through. And some like Billy Bush and Britney, we welcome back into the fold and love them again. But then I also will say there's something really interesting happening right now with celebrities where there is, when people call it this cancel culture, where some people don't get that, are not going to be receiving that same redemption moment because they've done other things. And that's probably like a whole other deep talk, but it is really interesting to see like what you can come back from and what you can't. And I personally am a believer that like, you can't come back from racism or misogyny very easily. So those are things that I think it's less of a cancel culture, more of like the world is like really waking up to what we're going to accept. And I think some celebrities just can't play on the right set of fence there.
Well, thank you so much, Sabina, for talking to us and sharing all this great information. So
Yes.
if anyone wants to reach out to you, we'll put a website so that way they can and maybe get to school.
Yeah, go get to PR school so we can be reading about you in like positive headlines.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.